because one of Julia Quinn's themes that she plays with is that just because you are a woman does not mean that you are a champion of women. And just because you are of this class does not mean that you have class. Yeah. And it's something that comes up a lot in her writing, especially that just because you're a woman doesn't mean you're a good person. And doesn't mean that you're supportive of women.
We're the good doctors of Abbey Research. I'm Dr. Erin.
I'm Dr. Kristen.
Y'all, you are so welcome to our coverage of Bridgerton Season 2, Episode 1, capital R, Rake. Sometimes we talk about happy things.
This is really only when Bridgerton is on television.
Or Hallmark movies.
Or Hallmark movies. And then this July when we are going to create a month of joy in which we may just talk at length about our love of League of Their Own. But that's for later.
I don't know. But it was just so refreshing to take notes about something that was like meet cutes. And
and the worst part of this is that Anthony's an idiot.
Casual references to Hindu culture. So happy. So yes, we're back. Bridgerton Season 2. For those of you who may be just joining us because you saw how amazing Bridgerton was the last time and you just found us on the YouTubes, hi. We talked all about Season 1, links below. We are big romance fans. We have read the Bridgerton books many times. We will talk about, in some ways, the books, how the book compares to the show, but we are going to pretty much critique the show.
Yep.
And recognize them as separate entities.
We're very good at that.
We're very good at that. And we prefer to consume adaptations that way rather than going like line by line in terms of differences. But we will talk about differences a little bit, but we are here to critique and discuss Bridgerton the show. Last season on Bridgerton, we talked a lot about what real diversity and real inclusivity looked like. So we'll be bringing up those conversations again in terms of body size and shape, ability, race, appearance, gender, you name it. We're trying to hit all the intersections, even if Bridgerton isn't. So we will be talking about that as we go along. I think those are all the updates. I don't have anything else. I can't think of anything else. You?
No, I will simply say that this overall, we are fans of this franchise. We are fans of this story. We are fans of what historic romance sets out to do. And just as a brief PSA, because this seemed to confuse a lot of people in season 1, Jane Austen did not write historical romance.
Nope.
It's really quick.
Nope.
She wrote satire
with
that was contemporary to her time frame.
Yeah.
With kissing.
With romances.
To all of the hand-wringing I saw that was like, well, this is nothing like Austen. I was like, good. Then they would have ruined it.
It's not supposed to be like Austen.
It's not supposed to be like Austen. If you like this vibe, of which is like, I joke all the time, it's like a rom-com with corsets. If you love this vibe, good news for you is that there is a massive wealth of books like this that are written by Tessa Dare and Julianne Long and more by Julia Quinn. There's lots of Sarah McLean, Alicia Rye.
Lisa Kleypas.
Lisa Kleypas. So many. There are some historical romance authors publishing right now that do lean more into the Austen social satire kind of line of things. Grace Burrows would be one of those that treks with that a little bit more. But if you're here because you were expecting Bridgerton to be Austen, I'm so sorry to disappoint you. She wasn't writing romances in the way that we think of them now. Georgette Heyer, who is also someone that comes up a lot, was also not really doing that. She was getting closer. She also happened to be a raging anti-Semite and racist, and so it was a little bit more difficult to engage with her works now.
Yikes on bikes.
I digress. But just up front, this is supposed to be fun. It has massive plot holes. Our editor Eleanor, and us are diametrically opposed on this. This show drives Eleanor nuts because of the plot holes. Totally fair. If you're one of those people, we're going to critique them, but we still enjoy the show. Yeah. So know that going in. I can there's going to be a whole plot line about somebody doing business in America and England, and it's 1813. Y'all, the War of 1812 is going on. They're not doing business between those two countries. It's just not happening. And I just, they said that, I was like, oh, Bridgerton.
Oh, but bless.
Bless. If you're looking for that, this show is not capable of giving it to you. I wish it was. It's not. So I wanted to do all of those disclaimers. We're here for the joy and the costumes. We're going to critique when things are narratively boring to us. We are going to point out plot holes. Spoiler, I'm probably never going to care about the Featheringtons. I'll just tell you that right up front, except for Penelope. I just don't care. So we're going to do all of that. But on the whole, if you're here for a burning takedown, we're not your girls.
Yeah. And I mean, we talked about this ad nauseum last season. We are going to critique the show in terms of its diversity and representation because that is what the show has posited. Yeah. So the show creator and producer Chris Van Dusen and a lot of other people have explicitly talked about why they wanted to do a colorblind casting, super racially diverse casting that is ahistorical in a lot of ways. Some ways not. A lot of ways ahistorical for the most part. So that's why we're critiquing that plot point, because we would love to see a romance show that just throws all the rules out and is like, we're just going to make it how humans are, rather than how it was or how we construct it. But that's not what we got from the first season all the time, so that's why we are discussing it. But it is because the show has, if you will, laid down that gauntlet. And we are like, I will pick up that gauntlet and have some words about it.
We will also say we think they grew a lot between season 1 and season 2. And so if anybody on the Bridgerton writing staff was watching our critique, because you actually gave us our wish list.
Oh my God, we asked for it and you gave it to us.
And you gave it. So if y'all are watching, please know we'd love to talk to you. We have a great history of having writers of shows. And by great history, I mean once. We have
one for one. We're one for one, though.
We're one for one. But we had a delightful time talking to Ben Rubin about writing Dope Sick. We would love to talk to somebody about writing Bridgerton. They are very different entities.
Please.
And so, all of that being said,
okay, now we're ready.
I will also tell you, now we're ready. My last discllaimer.
Okay.
Kate Shorma, in the books Kate Sheffield, is my favorite heroine besides Penelope Featherington. They're my two favorites. So if I am over loving of Kate, it has been for nearly 10 years.
It has been foretold. It has been foretold.
Just whole heart. Now please, tell us what happens in capital R Rake. Erin, my dear.
Capital R Rake. So, I think we shall start as we mean to go forward in terms of breaking down the main storylines that we've got going on.
We're not doing a play-by-play here.
We don't do those. If you've already listened to our already 8 minutes of non sequiturs and warnings about our coverage. So, obviously we have the main storyline, which, I mean, I'm sorry if this spoils anything for you, but the posters, is the story of Kate and Anthony. Or is it Edwina? She's also on the posters. So this is, Anthony's love story. That was hinted at the end of season 1, where he proclaims to Daphne and Simon that he is going to get the Viscountess, matter-of-factly and rather businesslike. So that's what we get from Anthony in this episode. We get his very businesslike approach to finding a wife. He has a list of qualities. He goes on a series of interviews that is a hilarious montage. And if we have not said it yet today, let me be the first to say how much we flipping love Jonathan Bailey in this role.
He's crushing it.
It's amazing. His face work, his body language. He's just the most Anthony, and we're energized by it. So that's really what we get from Anthony in this episode is a whole bunch of his nonsense.
True. And oh gosh, do we get his nonsense. I should say too that we open with the following season.
Yes.
So if you are a reader of the books and you are confused because in the books, it picks up like the day of like the end of book 1, book 2 starts.
Right.
And they go to Aubrey Hall and it's a whole thing. This waits a whole season.
Yes.
And there's a couple of really good things in that we're going to find out Colin has been on his tour. He and Penelope have been writing. Daphne has had time to grow and produce a human. So we're at a whole other season. The other thing we find out in terms of the capital R rake is that Lady Whistledown has been quiet.
Yes. And so, I will transition to the next story, which is then, of course, who is Lady Whistledown? We know it's Penelope Featherington. Nobody else does. The Queen, everyone is back for this season, and everyone is waiting for whether Whistledown will come back or not, because she has been away while everyone else has been away at their country homes in the summertime, as the Ton is wont to do. And so we get the realization in this episode from the Queen that she's like, do you know what this means? It means she's one of us. Because they had been thinking she was like a maid or like some person not of their class. And so this is her big discovery. So yes, we open with Eloise's debut, which can we talk about Claudia Jessie and how fantastic she is as Eloise? Eloise is not one of my favorite characters from the books, y'all. We just had this discussion offline. I like her. I like her story in her book, but I don't like her romance. We talked about this in season 1. So where they are going with Eloise, I think, towards a more like feminist, classist, like
blue stocking,
suffrage perspective, I am here for 100%. We both talked about how, and in this episode, we get more of Eloise obsessing over who Lady Whistledown is. Not our favorite plot point, but we're hopefully understanding that it's moving towards this bigger one. So, Eloise's debut goes about exactly as you would think, and I almost wondered if Penelope timed her first edition to save
I like to
Eloise.
believe she did. I like to believe she did because she was pacing so much and watching everything.
I know. It's like the most best friend vibes. It's totally something you and I would have done for each other.
I wrote down, I was like, I would save Erin from her debut.
It was amazing. She was like, well, and then because later they're talking about it, and she was like, well, it's a good thing Lady Whistledown saved you when she did. And I was like, you are the best friend ever. So obviously Penelope and Eloise and Lady Whistledown are going to be a big storyline through this season. So we get a little bit of that throughout this episode. We get what I loved too is kind of like the behind the scenes of how Penelope is Lady Whistledown.
I loved that. I loved the flashbacks.
Yeah.
And I also love that for some bizarre reason, even though Nicola Coughlan is Irish, they didn't have her use her actual voice. Which I thought was an interesting choice.
I was like, so no one from Galway ever emigrated to London to be a maid or a servant?
You have to sound like you're from South Dublin?
You have to give her a Dublin accent? I know. It was so funny.
When she started talking, I was like, wait, that is not a Galway. That is not how Nicola Coughlan sounds. What is happening? Anyway.
I know. Laughing. So it's closer to her own accent. But yeah, in this episode, we get some of the behind the scenes of how she's able to maintain as Lady Whistledown, and I love it. This is not something that happens in the books. We talk about it because in the books, Queen Charlotte, as you so rightly pointed out offline when we were talking about it, Queen Charlotte's not a character, and certainly not, she might be referenced, but she is not a character in the books. And so there is no person who feels threatened by Lady Whistledown in the first 3 books anyway, that is trying to find out who she is. So we also don't get the reveal of Penelope as Lady Whistledown until much later in the books. So they moved that. And
how it's done
up.
Is delicious, though, I will say.
So
like
good.
How it's done, and I can still see them revealing it to the town.
Yeah,
the way they do in the book, which is why we're not going to spoil it.
Yeah, the same way.
It is delicious.
It is wonderful. So they've moved that timeline around a little bit and created this role for Queen Charlotte, which I love. I think she's a great addition. And the vibes between her and Lady Danbury are just like fire. I just want Lady Danbury in every scene, and the way she struts around with her cane is just
the way that she elocutes her, like,
yeah.
I've not seen like enough of the actress's other work, but I don't believe she actually talks like that. Like, I think that's a Lady Danbury affectation.
Oh, it is. No, she doesn't. She has a very distinct, I forget where she's from in England, but it's not that accent.
I love how, like, she moves her whole head when she talks in this very specific way. It is delicious.
Yeah. And so we do get this element with Penelope and Eloise also, because now that Eloise is out, she is at the same events that Penelope is at. And so we see that this is creating a problem for Pen, because she used to just escape because nobody saw her because she's the consummate wallflower. But now Eloise is like, get me out of this. I hate this. Oh, look, there you are. We never have to be alone.
But the look on Pen's face when she said that was amazing. Because in this friendship, I am Eloise.
Yeah.
and Erin would be Pen.
Penelope. Yeah.
And I would just be like, oh my God, we can be together all the time. And Erin's like slowly dying inside.
But I loved the conversation that they had in the Daffodils.
Perfect.
And I think
Perfect
for me,
conversation.
that was the scene where I realized, like, the maturity of the show. And I feel like, and I wrote this, I think, later on in my notes in later episodes, that, like, the show feels so much more settled in who it is. Mm-hmm. And the stories it wants to tell. And it knows, because it had all this feedback from us, right? Like, what stories they want to tell. But that, like, how much people love Penelope and Eloise they gave us that scene, and they're going to give us a lot more scenes like it, where they were, you know, where Eloise was allowed to explain how hard it was for her to come out right after Daphne, who is the perfect example of everything, who did everything perfectly, including not only marrying the catch of the season, but actually having it be a love match. Like, impossible standards.
And the catch of the season being a duke, so you're becoming a duchess,
yeah.
And your first baby was alive and an heir.
And a boy, yeah. Like, she continues to be perfect.
She just wins at everything. And Eloise is like, and we're done. I'm not even competing with this. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it was a perspective that Penelope didn't really have, because she's always been the wallflower and she's always been invisible. But she was able to express how she found comfort in the invisibility and the lack of expectations. So that was, I loved that conversation. So that's what we get from that one. And then finally we get to meet the Sharmas.
I will say, before we go on and on and on about the Sharmas, which we totally can, let's just say that the Featherington thing in this.
I forgot about the Featheringtons, literally.
I mean, I frequently do. I'm literally just looking at my notes. So, and I'm feeling that this is really setting up. So as we are talking to y'all, we have seen the first 3 episodes, and that is it.
That is it. Yeah.
So I will say, in some of the machinations of the first 3, I really feel like we are setting up a very fascinating duel continually between the Bridgertons and their friends and the Cowpers and the Featherington daughters, and what that looks like. And that's a huge part of the book that's really fun. So,
yeah,
because one of Julia Quinn's themes that she plays with is that just because you are a woman does not mean that you are a champion of women. And just because you are of this class does not mean that you have class.
Yeah.
And it's something that comes up a lot in her writing, especially that just because you're a woman doesn't mean you're a good person, and doesn't mean that you're supportive of women.
Enter Portia Featherington.
Enter Portia Featherington. In the book, the real foil for that is Cressida Cowper. And God, that actress is knocking it out of the park, because I just want to throat punch her whenever I see her.
I know.
So what we find out is that the cousin Featherington, who is now the heir, who is the fourth cousin, that's how long it took him to find a dude after your one died by suicide. And he's coming from the Americas, where he runs a successful ruby mining business, where let me tell you how many rubies we have on this continent.
So many.
So many.
Just swimming in them.
Much. I'm just lousy with rubies.
Have you ever seen those pictures of, like, cranberry farms? That's what ruby farms look like.
Rubies are. I just go out in my backyard and I get out a snow
rubies.
pick and it just pops up. When I heard that, I just started laughing. I was like, so you're also setting up the Featheringtons as idiots. Like,
Idiots.
Got it. No problem. Because I'm waiting for a scene at some point where someone says that to a Bridgerton and they go, but the Americas don't have rubies. Anyway. Although we may not know that at this point in 1812, because America's only been settled for, under 50 years.
I don't know.
But he still has not released the dowry money. He still has not come to settle their affairs.
Yeah.
And so, of course, the devil works hard, but Portia Featherington works harder. So she is just... If you want to talk about the consummate survivor, we got to talk about Portia Featherington. Every time she's on screen, I think of that line from Hamilton where it's like, he will do what it takes to survive.
Yeah.
And
she is Hamilton-esque in her survival instincts, for sure.
She would just do whatever. And it was so funny. My husband, who grew up in the UK, comes in and he goes, "Oh, is that Polly Farmer?" And I was like, "Yes." And he goes, She has been the same shape her whole life." And I was like, oh, someone had a poster of Polly Farmer at some point in his life. Got it. No problem. But, like, she is always, I love the dresses, too. Like, she's never maternal. She's never dressed like the rest of the women in her age group. Mm-hmm. She is always ready to land another husband or look younger, and they have her cinched within an inch of her life. And she is very, how they costume her shows a lot about her character, I think.
Yeah.
And that it's like, I am ready to go to battle at any moment, versus Violet Bridgerton, who's like, I am simply ready to exist.
She's all soft colors and like
soft fabrics.
Yeah.
And like Portia's dressed out of like, bad couch material that looks completely unforgiving and really painful.
It's a really good point. I love the way that they've kind of weaponized fashion.
Yeah, and Portia is a weapon. Yeah, like Portia is a weapon. And so that's really fascinating. And that is that storyline of from what I understand from people who have seen the whole series, the Featherington cousin will be a Mariana level plot point throughout the rest of the series. So, of course, it's not a spoiler to say, of course, he has to arrive. Like, of course he has to arrive. It's coming. But in this episode, they are very concerned that he hasn't yet. And now, let us talk Sharmas.
Yeah, I just want to mention before we move on that Portia's acting masterclass when confronted with Philippa. I don't remember which one's fiance's parents. Philippa. I think, because Prudence is the dumb one.
Prudence is the dumb one. Yeah, it's Philippa who's the betrothed one.
Yeah, was amazing. That whole scene where she just played all her cards.
All of them.
And manipulated. I literally wrote down Lady Featherington is an acting masterclass. So it's not my favorite storyline, but I understand that they had to introduce Cressida Cowper early on in the first season, and then B, give her something else to do besides take down Lady Whistledown, because now that's Queen Charlotte's thing. So I'm intrigued by the fact that, like, she could join the Featherington family, because that would be a disaster.
Of the best proportions. I can't lie.
So entertaining proportions.
Yeah, I literally wrote, go on, Lady Featherington, weaponize those tears, girl.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I care nothing about Prudence and Philippa.
Not even a little bit.
Zero. I am here for all the Lady Featherington. Jack Featherington shows up by the end of the fine. He's handsome. He's young. He's not what they thought he was. We'll get into him in episode 2. All right. The Sharmas.
So many happy things here.
So many happy things. So we get the first instance of the Sharmas on screen is a meet cute on horses.
Can we bring those capes back?
They were fantastic.
I said we need to bring shaded boats back, and we need to bring those capes back.
Shaded boats for sure. I've seen shaded boats. Those look amazing.
Like, I have been punting on the river whatever up and down England because I was a tourist. Never have I been offered a shaded boat.
I know.
We need to bring them back.
We do. So we get a meet cute between Kate and Anthony on a horse when he sees her racing through the park.
And bless him, he assumes she's in trouble.
Assumes she's in trouble. Sweet summer child. Ends up chasing after her. They have a adorable conversation. We get like real quick introduction that they're taking representation of Hindu culture seriously because she speaks Hindi when she's caught by him. And all we're given on the subtitles is speaks Hindi. And I was like, yeah, ooh, we're doing it now. So then we meet, after this, we meet the Sharmas. They are staying with Lady Danbury. We have Lady Mary. We have Miss Kate Sharma. And we have Edwina Sharma. And they are being hosted by Lady Danbury for the season, which is the best thing ever. It doesn't happen in the books, but I'm so glad it happened here because it just gives us more Lady D. We learn Kate is a bit of a smartass and a bit of a know-it-all, and she has lots of plans for Edwina.
Kate is a walking defense mechanism.
Yep. She sure did. And she has decided that she will be the matchmaker for Edwina. Hilariously, at the same time that Lady Danbury has decided that she will be the matchmaker for Edwina. And I am here. They want to give me those scenes all day long.
All of it.
All day long of them trying to prove who knows more about what.
I promise. I have our prospects well in hand. The way she said that, I was like...
So good. We learn that Queen Charlotte is mad at Lady Mary for something. And we learn very quickly that it was a scandal because Lady Mary was the incomparable of her season and ran away with a lowly clerk, Kate's father, who already had a daughter who had Kate. So Kate is not Lady Mary's biological daughter, but she was raised by her. Edwina is the biological daughter of Kate's dad and Lady Mary. So I love this like tension, especially it's gonna become relevant again because Edwina is eventually named this season's incomparable, this season's diamond by the end of the episode. So then we get Kate and Anthony's second meeting, which is at Lady Danbury's house for her ball. She's hosting the opening ball, and Kate overhears Anthony just being an idiot.
Being a dude. Like, just being a really typical dude.
Just being a dude, talking to other dudes full of a lot of bravado, talking about how his wife is just basically going to be a breed horse. So, and he's going to get her pregnant with heirs, and then he can go to other fun pursuits. And so she calls him out. And
we should also say that at this point, especially in history,
he's not wrong.
That is normal again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like that's what is expected of a viscount, especially of where there has been a lack of a viscountess for 10 years, really. And I also want to say that this is so much of Anthony's defense mechanism.
Oh yeah.
Like this is his trauma response.
Oh yeah.
So he is saying those things not even necessarily because he believes them, but because he refuses to have a life that includes love.
Yeah. Yeah, and we get into that in episode 3, and boy, do we have lots of thoughts and feelings about poor Anthony's trauma response. But Kate calls him out. She insults both his character and his horsemanship, which, if y'all, that is a throw down. I love that scene. They're spitting fire. It is also trope watch a go-go that they are, enemies to potentially lovers, ... And then we learn more about Lady Mary's parents as well, when Mrs. Danbury confronts Kate with the news, like a letter from the Sheffields, who disowned Lady Mary when she absconded with Mr. Sharma. But they have said that they will give Edwina a dowry and support Lady Mary, but only if she marries an Englishman of nobility. Otherwise, the Sharmas are destitute. I mean, this is just standard romance, historical romance tropes, left, right, and center. So this is putting pressure now on the Sharmas. We understand why Kate is so insistent on getting a good match for Edwina. We don't yet know why Kate is not getting a match for herself, but we will get there. But I just wanted to say Kate was wearing a pashmina in that scene, and it made me very happy. So that is, we get all of that set up in the first episode. So obviously that's what first episodes do. And it was fascinating, I think, to see all the levels of interpersonal relationships that we're going to get, especially within the Sharmas. I love what they're doing with them this whole season so far. In terms of Kate's relationship with Edwina and with Lady Mary and with herself. We both adore Kate as a character, so give her all the screen time, especially Simone Ashley. She's doing such a great job of being like a howdy know-it-all. And then we get to the end of this episode, which is where Penelope decides to like poke the hornet's nest of Queen Charlotte by pressuring her to pick a diamond for the season, and then when she picks one, questioning whether or not we should have a diamond at all. So
the best.
She's got some brass balls, does Our Lady Whistledown, to go directly for Queen Charlotte there. But that's where we end episode 1. Dr. K, anything else we didn't cover in our discussion that you wanted to?
I just wanted to, remind everybody that every time Anthony looks at his watch, that's his father's watch.
Yeah.
And the deceased Viscount is a huge character in this season because he's a huge character in Anthony's life. So every time he checks that watch, it's his father's watch because it's the Viscount's watch. In one of the sequels, at some point in Bridgerton, you see Anthony give it to his son. Eventually, and so that watch is a big deal.
It is.
I also remind people that bees are an intentional theme, not a accidental one. And that Anthony, my God, his life looks so lonely.
I know. The Viscount montage was quite sad.
Like, I sat there and I was like, you have no friends because you can't have any.
Yeah.
You protect your family so much that you can't be close with your brothers. So much of that bravado. The only one who seems to see through you is Daphne. Yeah. And now she is, because she has the same level of pressure as the oldest daughter that you had as the oldest son. Benedict and Colin have no concept of what their brother is doing because they're not supposed to, and he's supposed to protect them.
Yeah.
And that's going to actually, a huge part of Colin's story is that he has no identity except Anthony's brother.
Yeah.
Because Anthony has taken over everything, because that's what Anthony thought it meant to protect and provide. And so it is just, I just kept wanting to hug him.
Yeah,
like,
and
buddy.
Benedict gets lost in the second son of it all.
Yep.
As well.
Tropes.
Which is very common in tropes. And, this is the storyline we've gotten for Benedict in season 1, is he doesn't quite know who he is or who he's supposed to be, and neither does Colin, and that's why Colin, goes on this trip touring around. They're both kind of unmoored by the fact that they are from one of the most important families in England at the time, but they don't have any real purpose or life goals, because their purpose and life goal is just to get married and have kids. But like Anthony is the one that is so driven and dominant in everything. We do get a hint from Benedict. He runs into Madame Delacroix and wants to know if they are going to continue their affair, and she rebukes him softly. So, and we'll get to Benedict more, I know, in episodes 2 and 3. Quickly becoming another one of my favorite characters, which is not at all how he is in the books. No. But yeah, I mean, the Bridgerton family dynamics are one of the it's one of the reasons why we love the book so much, and why people resonate with the show so much. So So excited to see where the top 5 Bridgertons? 4 Bridgertons.
5.
5 Bridgertons. We don't really deal with the last 3 for quite a while because they're still very young. Although we did get Francesca in some of the scenes in the first 3 episodes, which is amazing because she was like gone from the whole first season and it was just
a little bit odd.
Hyacinth and Gregory. Yeah. So I don't know, maybe even Francesca had a line. She might have, I don't know. But yeah, we're going to spend some time with the top 5 Bridgertons for a while because they're the oldest, and it's just great.
I love them so much. We will continue to love them in episode 2. In the meantime, we would love it if you would do the YouTubey things. Could you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with anyone else who's watching Bridgerton? We would love this conversation to keep going. If you've got responses to anything we said, as so many of you are very careful to point out the single second we misspeak, so I'm sure we will hear something. But if you'd love to join us in this conversation, comment below, and we would love to join in that with you, even if they are telling us that we misspoke. We do like being held accountable. And I think that's kind of it. So in my, we're starting to end our videos with wishes for you. So our wish for you in this is that your life is not lonely. And that if you have a burden like being a Viscount, you are sharing it with somebody who can share it with you, as we join Anthony on his journey to find somebody who can share it with him. All the best, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Oh, that was beautiful. Bye.